Welcome to the podcast Human Relationships, Anthropon Scheseis. Hello and welcome. I'm Anthropon, and this is Anthropon Scheseis, Human Relationships. Here we explore the psychology of relationships, the pressures of modern life, and how we can connect in a more meaningful way with ourselves and with other people, with poetry as our starting point. The podcast by Anthropon, dedicated to the psychology of relationships, the challenges of contemporary living, and the work of real connection. Inspired by the Greek poetry collection Anthropon Scheseis, Human Relationships by Anthropon, the show explores love, distance, attachment, self-worth, communication, and the everyday choices that shape intimacy. Through conversations, personal observations, research, and carefully designed questions, and of course, poetry, we aim to understand human nature with more clarity and to practice relationships that feel more grounded, respectful, and alive. Come with me as we explore what it means to connect for real. This podcast was born out of my love for poetry and the particular power poetry has to hold the depth of human feeling without simplifying it. My poetry collection, Anthropon Scheseis, Human Relationships, was the beginning. Through the spoken word, we continue that journey together. In this first episode, we begin with a topic that shapes almost every relationship now, whether we talk about it or not: technology and modern relationships. We live in a world where our connections are increasingly digital. Connection is easier than ever, but presence can be harder to sustain. Technology can bring us closer, but it can also create distance. We can reach one another in seconds and still feel unseen. So today, I want us to look at both sides, with honesty and with care. What do social media and dating apps do to the way we relate? What do they make easier? And what do they quietly erode? Let's begin the first episode together. Technology in relationships, connection, and the cost. Technology has changed the texture of our relationships. It has altered the speed of contact, the expectations we place on each other, and the way we interpret silence. At the start of 2025, Data Report's global analysis reported 5.24 billion active social media user identities, around 63.9% of the world's population. It also reported that the typical internet user spends about 2 hours and 21 minutes per day on social media. These figures are measured as user identities and accounts. Not necessarily unique individuals, but they still describe a reality. Digital contact is not occasional, it is structural. So the scale of digital life is unprecedented. So what does that do to the relationships? The impact is mixed. On the positive side, we have the positive effects, which are we can stay close to people we love regardless of distance. We can reconnect with old friends and maintain family ties. And we can share emotion quickly, messages, voice notes, photos, video. On the negative side, we have the costs and risks. Messaging can replace real meetings, not because we prefer it, but because it is easier. Also, many people feel lonely or rejected, even whilst constantly connected. And comparison can trigger anxiety and jealousy, especially when we confuse curated images with real life. Closeness is built through things technology often compresses: tone of voice, pauses, eye contact, body language, and the steady rhythm of shared time. So digital contact is real contact, but it is partial contact. It carries words and images, but it often loses context, body language, and the kind of timing that builds trust. So here is a question I want you to try as a small self-audit. When you send a message, what are you really asking for? Information, reassurance, attention, repair, or proof that you matter? If you recognize this in your own life, also try this question. When you message someone you love, are you using technology to reduce distance or to avoid closeness? Sometimes we reach for the phone not because we want connection, but because we want relief. Relief from awkwardness, uncertainty, or emotional intensity. Thus, technology becomes healthier in relationships when we use it consciously. A simple boundary that helps many people is this: if something matters, give it voice. If it is emotional, do not reduce it to short texts. Use a call, a voice note, or a meeting. Now, let's move on dating apps. Opportunity, fatigue, and values. There are several dating apps today. You can definitely find one that works for you. And dating apps have transformed how people meet. For some, they are liberating. They widen social circles, support people with limited time, and allow connection between individuals who might never cross paths. For others, they are exhausting, as apps also shape perception. When dating becomes a stream of profiles, people can start to feel like products, and connection can start to feel like evaluation. This is where many experience what is often called swipe fatigue, the exhaustion that comes from constant choice without depth. To keep this grounded, let's start with what the data can and cannot tell us. A large US survey by Pew Research Center found that 3 in 10 adults have used a dating app or site, and 1 in 10 partnered adults met their current spouse or partner through online dating. Among partnered adults under 30, that rises to 1 in 5. This does not mean dating apps are the only path to relationships, but it does confirm that they are a mainstream route for many people. So, on the positive side, the potential benefits of dating apps: access to people outside your usual social circle, matching around shared interests, values, or lifestyle, practical support for people with limited time, new cities, or social anxiety. On the other side, we have the common challenges. The illusion of endless choice can reduce commitment to any real person in front of you. Also, rejection can become constant and impersonal, which can quietly damage confidence. And finally, people can start treating human beings like options rather than individuals, which is very common nowadays. So, research is increasingly focused on the psychology of swiping. A 2025 study examining decision-making on dating apps found that evaluating large numbers of profiles increases perceived partner choice overload, and that swiping styles can be linked with less favorable self-evaluations. In plain language, the design of rapid selection can make you feel both powerful and depleted, even when you are not doing anything wrong. This is where values matter. If you use dating apps, do not let the platform set the pace of your emotional life. Set your own pace. On that note, let's see practical guidelines that protect depth. First, define your intention before you open the app. Connection, a long-term partner, dating, or curiosity. Second, limit swiping time. Choose a window, for example 15 minutes, then stop. Third, move from text to voice earlier. A short call can prevent weeks of confusion. Fourth, if you notice fatigue, cynicism, or numbness, pause. Rest is not failure. It is self-respect. So, if you use dating apps, consider this as a personal guideline. Move from selection to conversation quickly, and from conversation to a real meeting when it feels safe. Endless messaging can create a relationship with an idea of a person rather than with the person. A brief call can also protect you from confusion because voice reveals more than text. Now let's move on social media, comparison, validation, and the performance of love. Social media is not separate from relationships. It is often inside them. Sometimes it supports connection, shared photos, community, staying in touch, but it also invites comparison and performance. We are exposed to curated images of other people's lives, relationships, and achievements. Even when we know it is filtered, the nervous system can still react as if it is true. A crucial distinction is this: time spent is not the same as the quality of views. Recent research is increasingly pointing towards a pattern. It is not only how long we are online, but whether our use becomes compulsive, distress-driven, or tied to self-worth. A 2024 systematic review with meta-analysis reported associations between social media use, problematic social media use, and mental health outcomes including depression and anxiety, as well as sleep outcomes. And a 2025 longitudinal cohort study of US adolescents reported that high or increasing trajectories of addictive use, including social media, were associated with suicidal ideation and behaviors and worse mental health outcomes. These studies do not prove that social media causes these outcomes on its own, but they do strengthen the case that for many people, the way we use these platforms can interact with vulnerability, mood, sleep, and stress. In adult relationships, social media can create very specific tensions. Jealousy and surveillance, checking likes, follows, and stories. Misinterpretation, reading intent into silence, delayed replies, or online activity. Public validation, feeling secure only when the relationship is visible. And finally, comparison, measuring your private relationship against other people's edited highlight reels. A growing body of research links heavier or more problematic social media use with worse well-being, including depressive symptoms, especially in younger people. The point is not moral panic. The point is that attention, sleep, and self-worth are involved, and all three directly affect how we relate to others. In relationships, social media creates specific tensions, jealousy, as we said, monitoring, the fear of missing out, and the pressure to present a certain image of their relationship. Some couples argue about posts and likes, but underneath the argument, there is usually a deeper question. Do I feel chosen? Do I feel secure? Do I matter? A useful practice is to separate private intimacy from public signaling. Not everything needs to be posted. Some of the strongest moments in relationships are quiet, ordinary, and invisible online. Protecting them can be an act of care. And here's a practical test. When you post something about your relationship, what is the need underneath it? Celebration? Belonging? Proof? Revenge? Or reassurance? And here is a boundary that protects intimacy. Keep some things private on purpose. Let your relationship have a room that is not open to the public, not because secrecy is healthy, but because privacy is where trust can breathe. And now we move on to the poetry section. Since, as I said, the inspiration for this podcast was poetry, my first Greek poetry book, I would like to read you a poem from my collection which I believe, in a way, summarizes what we discussed today. Above all, in relation to faces, that is, people. The poem is titled Faces. Life, as we live it, is full of faces, and each person has one and 1,000 more hidden in their soul, which they come out as soon as they meet other faces. Adaptation of faces sounds like a theory for which I am trying to find a definition. We learn words in this life, but we also learn faces that hide other faces before our words can even reach us. So, the invitation today is balance. Use technology to support love in yourself, not to replace it. Before we move to the closure of this episode, I want you to leave with some questions to take with you, either to answer them now or think about them and carry them until the next episode. So, some questions to reflect on are: when do I use my phone to connect, and when do I use it to escape discomfort? Is there one relationship where I can replace a week of messages with one real conversation? If I use dating apps, do my actions match my values and intentions? Do social platforms strengthen my self-worth, or do they quietly erode it? What boundary could I set this week that would protect my attention and my relationships? What is the biggest challenge technology creates for you in connection and intimacy? How do you find balance between digital life and real life? Thank you for staying so far. To close, here is a core message. Technology is a double-edged tool for relationships. It can connect us and it can isolate us, depending on how we use it. Technology is not the enemy and it is not the solution. It is a tool. It can reduce distance, it can create avoidance, it can support intimacy, it can replace it. The key is intentionality and balance. Use digital contact to create real meetings. Use messages to support real repair. Use social media as a tool, not as a judge of your worth. And I would like to hear from you. Has technology helped your relationships or made them harder? Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. This is only the start. This is only the beginning. Human relationships, they need a lot of care. Be kind. Be caring. Try not to harm others and be respectful. Until the next time, be yourself. Take care. Bye.